At 0 degrees, latitude lies a line you've seen on every map, yet almost no one truly understands it. It's not marked by fences, monuments, or walls, but it's more powerful than borders, mountains, or even oceans. This is the equator, Earth's invisible spine, and it's doing far more than just splitting the planet in half. You've probably heard it's hot near the equator. Maybe that's where the sun hits hardest. But what if that's just the beginning? What if this line is a key to decoding the planet itself? From steering the jet streams that fuel megastorms, to creating lush rainforests teeming with half the world's biodiversity, to guiding ancient trade winds that built empires as long before GPS was a thing. This line shapes civilizations, and it's now at the heart of the climate crisis. And yet, most people couldn't even tell you where it really runs. In this video, we're going to uncover the hidden science, history, and future of the equator. Why it's more than a line, it's a living, moving force. A force that's been quietly shaping everything from the weather outside your window to the survival of entire ecosystems. Stick around because once you see what equator really is, you'll never look at a map or the world the same way again. The equator isn't just a line on a map, it's where the world comes alive. Right in the middle of our planet, the equator is like Earth's belt, wrapping around its biggest, roundest part. But this line isn't just about directions. It decides so much of what makes life possible. Here, the sun shines brightly. The days and nights are almost always the same length, and the weather stays warm all year. That's why the rainforests near the equator are bursting with life, from chattering monkeys to colorful birds and trees so tall they touch the clouds. People who live along the equator grow sweet fruits, dance to vibrant music, and celebrate traditions as old as time. Even the oceans behave differently here, helping ships sail and shaping the winds. It's as if the planet's heartbeat is strongest at the center. So, equator isn't just geography. It's the starting point for stories, cultures, and creatures that wouldn't exist anywhere else. It's not just where the world meets, it's where the world begins. In this documentary, we explore how one invisible line, the equator, has shaped our world in ways no border ever could. It doesn't show up on the ground, but it's always there, circling the planet like a hidden thread holding everything together. This single line has helped decide where jungles grow, where storms swirl, and where people plant their crops. Along its path, it has influenced what people wear, what they eat, and even how they celebrate. Traders once followed the winds near the equator to cross oceans and connect distant lands, carrying spices, stories, and ideas. It's where cultures mix and where time seems to stand still, with sunrises and sunsets arriving like clockwork. Unlike borders drawn by people, the equator came from the earth itself, a line whispered by nature, not shouted by war or walls. And even though you can't touch it, its power can be felt in the rhythm of life all around it. So come with us as we journey along this imaginary line and discover how it's been quietly guiding our world all along. You'll see how civilizations didn't just survive along the equator, they thrived because of it. In these warm, sunlit lands, early people found rich soil, endless rain, and growing seasons that never stopped. They built villages that turned into cities, with markets full of fruits, spices, and colors the world had never seen. Rivers became highways, and jungles became homes bursting with life and legend. But the equator didn't just help ancient people, it still matters today. Powerful countries watch this region closely, racing to control its resources, its trade routes, and its future. Satellites pass over it, ships cross it, global powers compete quietly, knowing that whoever understands the equator holds a key to the planet's balance. It's more than just a spot on the globe. It's a stage where history has played out for thousands of years and where new stories are still being written. The equator isn't just part of the past, it's part of the power struggles, dreams, and discoveries of today. Why does the equator get the most rain, yet hold the greatest promise for growing food? It all starts with the sun. The equator sits right under it, soaking up more sunlight than anywhere else on Earth. That heat pulls water from oceans and rivers into the sky, building thick clouds that pour down rain almost every day. It might seem too much, but for plants, it's paradise. The soil stays moist, the air is warm, and the growing never stops. You can plant a seed and watch it bloom faster than almost anywhere else. That's why bananas, cocoa, coffee, and endless tropical fruits come from these regions. The rain doesn't ruin the land, it renews it. And for farmers living along the equator, it means the earth gives back all year long. While deserts struggle and colder places wait for spring, the equator just keeps growing. So this rainy, steamy belt around the planet isn't a challenge, it's a gift, holding the secret to feeding the world. Why are countries along the equator so full of natural treasures, yet many of their people still live with so little? It's a puzzle as old as history. These lands are bursting with riches, gold in the ground, oil deep below, forests thick with rare trees, and soil that grows almost anything. But having treasure doesn't always mean sharing it. Long ago, explorers and empires came to these places, not to help, but to take. They built railways and ports, not for the people, but for the goods. And even today, big companies and powerful nations still fight over these resources, often leaving local communities behind. In many equatorial nations, a few grow very rich while others struggle to find clean water or good schools. It's not because these countries are poor, they're not. It's because the wealth hasn't been shared fairly. But change is possible. With strong leaders, fair rules, and people working together, these nations could turn their natural gifts into a better life for everyone. The equator holds great power, but it's people who decide how that power is used. Understanding the equator is like holding a map to the future of our warming world. This middle line of Earth is where the heat hits first and hardest, where the climate is already changing faster than in many other places. The rains come too fast or not at all, the oceans are getting warmer, and animals are shifting where they live. People here are the first to feel the planet's fever, and the first to find ways to live with it. Farmers are learning to grow food in new ways, and entire communities are finding smart solutions to protect their forests and water. What happens throughout the equator could shape what happens everywhere, because this region helps control the air we breathe, the weather we feel, and even the food on our plates. If we want to know what the future holds, we need to listen to the places living in it now. The equator has always been Earth's center line, but now it's the front line in the story of climate change. Long before maps, satellites, or GPS, ancient navigators looked at the stars and the sea, and many were drawn toward the equator, the planet's great zero line. Polynesians set sail across vast oceans in canoes, reading the waves and watching the birds, guided by knowledge passed down through generations. Arab traders rode the winds across the Indian Ocean, their ships heavy with spices, gold, and stories. They didn't know the equator by name, but they felt its pull. The skies above it was different, the stars brighter, the winds more predictable. It was a path not just across water, but across cultures. Along this invisible line, sailors found new lands, new people, and new possibilities. And as they traded goods, they also traded ideas about science, food, music, and belief. The equator wasn't just a place on Earth, it was a bridge between worlds. Even without modern tools, these brave travelers knew something powerful waited along that line. It connected not just continents, but the past to the future. In 1520, as Magellan's crew sailed into unknown waters near the equator, they noticed things that didn't make sense. The wind, which had pushed their sails for weeks, suddenly disappeared, leaving their ships stuck in the still, sweltering heat. Then, just as quickly, violent storms would explode from the sea, tossing waves like mountains. The sailors stared upward and saw stars they had never seen before, bright patterns that felt like they belonged to a different world. They were crossing into something new, something the old maps couldn't explain. The equator wasn't just a line, it was a zone of mystery where nature played by different rules. These strange shifts were terrifying but also thrilling. To Magellan's men, it felt like the edge of the earth itself. But little did they know, they were sailing through one of the most important regions on the planet, a place that would challenge, confuse, and ultimately connect the world. Long before anyone called it the equator, indigenous communities from the lush Amazon rainforest to the vast African savannas already understood the magic of the sun's zenith, the moment when the sun stands directly overhead and shines straight down. They didn't need maps or science books to know this was special. They watched how the sunlight touched the earth and used its power to plant crops, tell time, and celebrate festivals. The sun's height meant longer days of warmth and growth, and they built their lives around this natural rhythm. From the rhythms of river life to the songs and stories passed down through generations, these communities lived in harmony with the sun's journey. Their deep connection showed that the equator isn't just a line on a globe, it's a powerful force that shapes how people live, work, and dream. In their traditions, the sun's zenith was a guide, a teacher, and a friend, long before the world gave it a name. The equator's name comes from a Latin word, equere, which means to make equal. That's because it divides the earth into two equal halves, north and mauve, like a perfect belt around the middle. But even though the equator sounds fair and balanced, its effects are anything but equal. Along this line, life is full of surprises, intense heat and heavy rains, endless days and nights that are almost the same length all year, and powerful storms that can change everything in an instant. Some places near the equator are bursting with lush forests and animals, while others face challenges like floods or dry spells. People living here experience a mix of nature's greatest gifts and toughest tests. So while the equator might promise balance in name, it is a place of energy, change, and sometimes beautiful chaos. It reminds us that nature doesn't always follow the rules we expect, and that's part of what makes the world so amazing. When European colonial powers came to the world, they saw the equator as more than just a line. It became a guide for their plans to explore, conquer, and control new lands. They used this invisible belt to divide up huge areas of the earth, drawing borders that often ignored the people who already lived there. Along the equator, rich forests, rivers, and resources caught their eyes, and they wanted to take as much as they could. These powers built forts, towns, and trade routes, hoping to rule faraway places from across the ocean. But their arrival changed everything, sometimes bringing new ideas and goods, but also causing conflict and hardship for indigenous communities. The equator became not just a natural line, but a symbol of power and control. This chapter in history reminds us how geography can be used to shape the fate of people, and why understanding this helps us learn from the past. 0 degrees, the exact spot of the equator, became more than just a location on a map. It turned into a gateway to some of the world's most fertile lands, bursting with life and promise. These are places where the soil is rich, the forests grow tall, and rivers flow strong, perfect for farming, building, and thriving. But because these lands were so valuable, many people wanted to control them. They became places of great opportunity, but also great conflict. Empires, traders, and nations all saw the equator as the key to wealth and power. So, this invisible line became a stage for both growth and struggle, where nature's gifts met human ambition. The story of 0 degrees shows us how one simple line can open doors to amazing wonders, and challenge us to share them wisely. Even though the equator is one of the most important lines on Earth, most people can't name a single city that sits right on it. It's surprising, isn't it? This invisible belt passes through many countries, each with their own busy capitals full of people, culture, and stories. Cities like Quito in Ecuador, Nairobi in Kenya, and Jakarta in Indonesia all lie along this line, buzzing with life and energy, yet somehow the equator stays a quietly hero, always there, but is often forgotten. Maybe it's because it's invisible, or because we think of countries and borders instead of lines around the globe. But these equatorial capitals are special places where the sun shines directly overhead, where days and nights are almost the same length, and where nature and people come together in amazing ways. Learning their names helps us remember that the equator isn't just geography, it's home to millions of stories waiting to be told. Countries along the equator are some of the richest places on Earth when it comes to animals, plants, and forests. Places bursting with color, sound, and life. You'll find monkeys swinging through trees, bright birds flying overhead, and insects in every shape and size. This incredible variety is called biodiversity, and it's like nature's treasure chest. But here's the tricky part. Many of these countries are also some of the poorest in terms of money and resources. It's because having lots of natural riches doesn't always mean people have what they need to live well. Sometimes valuable resources like trees and minerals get taken by others without helping local communities. Sometimes problems like lack of schools, roads, or hospitals make life hard. Protecting the forests and animals while helping people is a big challenge, but many equator nations are working hard to find balance. It's a reminder that true wealth isn't just about nature or money alone, it's about taking care of both. Around the equator, the sunlight stays almost the same every day. There's no big change between summer and winter like in other places. The sun shines high in the sky, giving warm, bright days all year long. But even with steady sunlight, the weather can still surprise you. Sometimes the skies open with heavy rains that flood the forests and rivers. Other times the rain disappears for weeks, making the land dry and thirsty. These shifts don't follow the usual seasons you might know. They can be sudden and dramatic, like nature's own surprises. So, while the sun is steady and strong, the climate dances to its own unpredictable rhythm. This mix of sun and weather creates some of the world's most amazing and lively places, full of plants and animals that know how to live with change. Here's the twist. The 0-degree line doesn't just influence the weather, it rewrites it. Unlike other places where the seasons follow a clear pattern, the equator plays by its own rules. The heat from the sun powers huge storms that can appear out of nowhere, and rain pours down in sudden bursts that soak the land and then vanish just as fast. It shapes winds that travel thousands of miles, carrying moisture and energy across oceans and continents. Because of equator, weather isn't just something that happens. It's a story that changes every day, full of surprises and power. This invisible line doesn't just sit still on the map, it's alive, shaping the sky, the seas, and the life below in ways that affect the whole planet. There's a special place near equator called the Intertropical Convergence Zone, or ITCZ for short, where winds from different directions come crashing together. Imagine two huge fans blowing air toward each other. When they meet, the air rises and forms thick clouds that turn into powerful storms. This belt of storms moves around the Earth like a giant weather engine, pushing rain and wind across continents and oceans. The ITCZ helps bring rainy seasons to many places, fills rivers, and even affects storms far away. It's like equator's secret weather machine, working behind the scenes to keep the planet's climate moving. Without it, the world's weather would be very different, less alive and less connected. This invisible line in the sky, the Intertropical Convergence Zone, holds more power than most political borders drawn on maps. While countries fight over land and draw lines to separate people, this hidden boundary controls the weather that touches everyone, everywhere. It decides when rain falls, when storms form, and even how crops grow. Unlike walls or fences, it can't be seen or owned, but its power is real and felt by millions of people. It reminds us that nature's forces don't care about politics. They follow their own rules. This invisible boundary shows us that some of the strongest powers on Earth are invisible, shaping life quietly but endlessly. Equatorial regions are home to some of the densest rainforests on Earth. Thick, green jungles full of towering trees, buzzing insects, and animals you won't find anywhere else. But these places aren't just wild and natural. They also have some of the fastest growing cities in the world. Places like Jakarta in Indonesia, Kinshasa in Africa, and Quito in Ecuador are bursting with energy, with millions of people living, working, and dreaming there. These cities grow quickly because of equator's warm weather and rich lands attract people looking for new opportunities. It's a place where nature's wild beauty meets the busy life of humans, creating a mix of adventure, challenge, and hope for the future. Some of the world's most important places for animals and plants are called biodiversity corridors, and many of them sit right along the equator. These corridors are like nature's highways, stretching from the thick jungles of the Congo in Africa all the way to the huge rainforests of Borneo in Asia. They help animals move safely through the forest, find food, and live in homes that are full of life. These places are packed with the creatures, from tiny frogs and colorful birds to mighty elephants and orangutans, that you won't see anywhere else. Protecting these corridors is like saving the Earth's greatest treasure chests, because they keep the planet healthy and full of wonder. Along the equator, nature's magic happens every day in these special living pathways. Scientists who study the Earth pay close attention to the clouds that gather along the equator. These clouds are like giant umbrellas, covering huge areas and playing a big role in how heat and rain move around the planet. By watching how these clouds change, researchers can learn important clues about how the climate is shifting, not just near the equator, but all over the world. Understanding these cloud patterns helps them predict things like stronger storms, droughts, or even changes in farming far away. So even though the equator might seem like just a line on a map, the clouds above it tell stories about the future of our whole planet. Build things like roads, bridges, and buildings is tough anywhere. But along this Earth zone, it's even harder. The intense heat can crack pavement and wear down machines. Rainstorms can pour down so fast and heavy, they wash away roads and flood towns in just hours. Even the soil can be tricky, sometimes too soft, too wet, or too unstable to build on easily. For equator nations, these challenges make it hard to create strong infrastructure, the systems that help people travel, get clean water, or power their homes. But people in these regions are finding smart solutions, using new materials and local knowledge to build in ways that work with nature, not against it. It's not easy, but every road, every bridge, every new idea helps create a stronger future. For centuries, the world's most important trade routes, from the ancient Silk Road to today's busy shipping lanes, have depended on narrow, powerful passages near the equator, called choke points. These are like tiny doorways where ships must pass to move goods between oceans and continents. Places like the Strait of Malacca in Southeast Asia or the Panama Canal in Central America are small on the map, but huge in importance. Spices, silk, oil, electronics, and food have all traveled through these spots, connecting people and cultures across the globe. Because they are so important, whoever controls these choke points holds the keys to global trade. Ever wonder why many space agencies launch rockets near the equator? It's not just a lucky spot, it's science in action. The Earth spins fastest at the equator, kind of like the middle of a spinning top. When a rocket blasts off from there, it gets an extra push from that fast spin, like a runner getting a head start. This extra boost helps rockets use less fuel and go farther, faster, which is super helpful when trying to reach space. That's why places like French Guiana or launch pads in Kenya are so valuable for space missions. The equator doesn't just shape weather and wildlife, it helps humans explore the stars. So far, we've seen how Earth's midline isn't just a line, it's a force that shapes our world. It influences climate patterns, creating rainforests, storms, and seasons that don't follow the usual rules. It guided ancient explorers, like Polynesians and traders, long before maps and compasses. And it still powers global trade today, through narrow sea passages and rocket launches to space. The equator connects everything, from weather to wildlife, from people to planets. It's not just the center of the Earth, it's the center of a story that's still being written, one that reaches across the globe and deep into our future. We've uncovered the latitude baseline, many contradictions, places full of natural abundance, yet marked by deep inequality. Lands soaked in endless sunlight, yet often shadowed by sudden storms. It's a region where the soil grows everything from bananas to cocoa, but where many people still struggle to thrive. Where the sun stays steady, but the weather can flip in an instant. These opposites don't cancel each other out. They tell the true story of the equator, a place of balance and imbalance, beauty and challenge, hope and hardship. It reminds us that the most powerful places in the world are rarely simple and always worth understanding. But now let's zoom out, way out, and ask a bigger question. How does the 0-degree line shape not just local ecosystems, but the entire world? This invisible line isn't just home to rainforests and rivers, it drives the engine of Earth itself. It stirs the winds that carry weather to every corner of the planet. It moves ocean currents that warm and cool entire continents. It helps decide where people live, what they grow, how they trade, and even how they launch into space. The equator connects energy, movement, and life across all borders. It's like the planet's heartbeat, steady, strong, and impossible to ignore. To understand the equator is to understand how the whole world works together in one giant living system. Now let's shift our lens from science to stories, from data to people. Because the equatorial line doesn't just shape the Earth's weather and wildlife, it shapes how people live, where nations draw their borders, and how cultures grow and collide. Along this line, traditions have formed, cities have risen, and power struggles have played out. The equator has been a meeting point for trade, a stage for colonization, and a source of pride and identity for the people who call it home. It's not just a scientific wonder. It's a cultural and geopolitical force, helping decide who has access to resources, who holds power, and who gets left behind. To understand the equator fully, we must see not just its natural role, but its human story too. The Earth's midline story isn't finished. It's just entering a new chapter. From ancient explorers to modern scientists, from rainforest villages to rising megacities, this invisible line has shaped the past in incredible ways. But its greatest impact may still be ahead. As the world faces big challenges like climate change, growing populations, and the need to protect nature, the equator stands at the center of it all. The choices made here will ripple across the globe, and the people living along this line, full of creativity, resilience, and knowledge, will help lead the way. This midline is more than geography. It's a story still unfolding, and the world is watching what comes next. And in a warming world, its role is more important than ever. The baseline feels the heat first. Its forests, rivers, and people are on the front lines of a changing climate. What happens here isn't just local. It affects rainfall in distant farms, food on global tables, and weather patterns across the planet. These regions store vast amounts of carbon, protect endangered species, and hold the wisdom of communities who've lived in balance with nature for generations. As the planet changes, the equator becomes not just a place to watch, but a place to learn from, to protect, and to understand deeply. The future of the world depends on what happens here, at 0 degrees. Equatorial nations hold a powerful key to slowing global warming. Their rainforests, these vast green giants, like the Amazon, the Congo Basin, and the jungles of Southeast Asia, breathe for the planet. They pull carbon from the air, cool the earth, and give life to countless plants and animals. But when forests are cut down, that carbon is released, weightening up climate change. That's why protecting these forests isn't just about saving trees, it's about saving the future. The countries along with Equator are guardians of these natural treasures, and their choices can help the whole world. With support, respect, and smart solutions, rainforest preservation can be one of our greatest weapons against a warming planet. The equator isn't just where the world begins, it may be where it's saved. Today, many major conflicts and migration paths happen close to the 0 degree latitude, the invisible 0 degree line. It's no coincidence. This belt crosses countries where people face challenges like poverty, scarce resources, and political struggles. When food, water, or land becomes hard to find, people move, searching for safer places to live. Sometimes disagreements over these resources lead to conflicts. The equatorial line's unique geography means these problems often overlap along this line, making it a hotspot for both hardship and hope. Understanding why these struggles happen here helps us see the bigger picture and reminds us how connected the world really is. Countries along the Earth's midline stand at a crossroads. With their warm weather and rich soil, they have the power to become the world's future breadbaskets, growing the food that millions need. But there's a risk, too, if challenges like climate change, conflicts, or unequal access to resources aren't managed. These same places could become battlegrounds, where people fight over what's left. It's a choice between hope and hardship, growth and struggle. The future of the planet's midpoint is a story still being written, one that will shape the food we eat and the peace we share. How these countries rise to the challenge could change the world for generations to come. Global trade depends a lot on sea routes near the central latitude, like the Panama Canal, the Strait of Malacca, and the Gulf of Guinea. These are special waterways where ships pass through to move goods quickly between countries and continents. The Panama Canal, for example, is like a shortcut that helps ships avoid going all the way around South America. The Strait of Malacca is one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world, connecting oceans and countries in Asia. And the Gulf of Guinea is a key spot for oil and other resources. Because these routes are so important, they help keep the world connected and make sure we get things like food, clothes, and toys from far away. The equatorial belt isn't just a line on a map. It's a busy highway for the world's goods and stories. What happens at 0 degrees, the equatorial region, doesn't stay there. The storms, sunshine, and winds that start along this invisible line send ripples across the entire planet. When heavy rains fall in the rainforest, they help fill rivers that flow far away. When strong winds blow here, they travel across oceans and carry weather patterns to places thousands of miles distant. Even changes in the equatorial zone's climate can affect the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe, no matter where we live. It's like a giant domino effect, where one small push causes big changes all around the world. The tropical center line might seem like just a line, but it's really a powerful heart that beats life into the whole planet. Will this region's benefit or suffer most from climate change? It's a big question with no easy answer. These areas already feel the heat and heavy rains more than most places, so changes can hit hard. Faster storms, longer droughts, and trouble growing food. But the people who live here are also some of the strongest and smartest, finding new ways to adapt and protect their homes. With the right support, equatorial nations could become leaders in fighting climate change, showing the world how to live with nature's challenges. But if things get worse, these places could suffer the most, with forests shrinking and communities struggling. The future depends on how we all work together to protect the planet's centerline and the whole planet. Can tropical belt nations grow richer without using up all their natural treasures? It's a big challenge, but many believe it's possible. These countries have amazing forests, minerals, and wildlife that people depend on. If they're careful, they can use these resources in ways that protect nature, like growing food without hurting the soil or using energy from the sun and wind instead of cutting down trees. With smart choices, education, and help from around the world, central latitude nations can build strong economies while keeping their forests and animals safe. It means finding a balance between progress and protection, so nature and people both thrive together. The future can be bright if they choose to care for their riches wisely. Shifting weather bands near the 0 degree latitude can change the way rain falls on farms, and that can affect the food grown all around the world. When rain comes at the right time, crops like rice, cocoa, and bananas grow strong and healthy. But if the rain comes too late, too early, or stops suddenly, farmers might lose their harvests. Since many countries rely on food from tropical midline farms, changes here can mean less food and higher prices everywhere. Scientists watch these weather bands closely to help farmers prepare and adapt, finding new ways to grow food even when the weather is tricky. What happens in these farmlands doesn't just matter locally, it's part of a bigger story about feeding the world. Scientists are still figuring out exactly how much the equatorial plane is shifting. This happens because the Earth doesn't spin perfectly straight. It wobbles a little on its axis like a spinning top that's a bit off balance. On top of that, changes in the climate can cause feedback loops, where one change leads to another, making things even more complicated. These shifts might be small, but over many years they can change weather patterns and where the warmest parts of the planet are. It's like a giant puzzle that scientists are still trying to solve, and understanding it will help us better predict the future of our planet. Long before modern science, ancient people living along the tropical latitude had special knowledge about the land, plants, and weather. They knew how to farm without hurting the soil, how to use plants for medicine, and how to live in balance with the forests and rivers around them. Sadly, much of this wisdom has been lost or forgotten over time. But if we listen closely to the stories and traditions that remain, we might learn how to take better care of the Earth today. Their ways teach us that people and nature can work together, not against each other, to keep the planet healthy for future generations. This ancient knowledge could be a key to living more sustainably in a changing world. Could the equatorial belt hold the blueprint for surviving on a hotter Earth? It might just be the place to watch and learn from. Because the mid-Earth zone already faces intense heat, heavy rains, and fast-changing weather, the people and plants here have adapted in amazing ways. From clever farming techniques to building homes that stay cool, they show how to live with nature's challenges, not fight them. Scientists study these ideas to find solutions that could help other parts of the world as the planet warms. The equatorial zone's story is like a guidebook for the future, teaching us how to be strong, smart, and ready for a hotter world. Climate, culture, and commerce all pulse outward from this zero line, the geographic midpoint. It's the starting point for weather patterns that bring rain and sunshine far and wide. It's where many unique cultures have grown, shaped by the land and the seasons. And it's the heart of trade routes, where goods and ideas flow between countries and continents. From the rainforest to the city market, the global center line sends out waves that touch everything around it. It's more than a line on a map. It's the source of life, stories, and connections that spread across the whole world. We learned that where the sun strikes straightest, right along the tropical center line, life grows wildest and most colorful. The rainforest here bursts with plants and animals found nowhere else on Earth, but it's also a place where change happens fast. The weather can shift suddenly, and the seasons don't follow the usual rules. This means plants, animals, and people must adapt quickly to stay alive. The Earth's beltline teaches us that with the most sunlight comes the most life and the fastest changes, reminding us how powerful and fragile nature can be. The global mid-belt is the world's most powerful invisible force. You can't see it on the ground like a river or mountain, but it shapes everything around us, from the weather and oceans to the plants and animals. It controls where the rain falls, how the wind blows, and even how people live. This invisible line quietly connects countries and cultures, moves ships across the seas, and helps rockets launch into space. Even though we can't see it, the tropical line's power is everywhere, keeping our planet alive and full of energy. If we want to understand the future, we need to study the center, the planetary equatorial region. It's where many changes happen first, like shifts in weather, growing cities, and new ways of living with nature. The Earth's central latitude is like Earth's control room, showing us clues about how our planet is warming and how people can adapt. By watching what happens here, scientists and communities can find solutions that help not just midline countries, but the whole world. The center isn't just a place on a map, it's the key to unlocking the future of our planet. 0 degrees, the zero latitude line, might just be where everything begins. It's the line where day and night balance perfectly, where the sun's energy sparks life in the richest forests and busiest cities. From here, weather spreads across the globe, animals thrive, and people build their homes. It's a starting point for stories, journeys, and changes that shape our world. Though invisible, this line holds the power to connect us all and remind us that every great adventure begins somewhere, sometimes right at 0 degrees. All right, that's it for today's video. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you got some value out of it. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. It helps more than you know and tells YouTube this video's worth sharing. And if you're new here or just haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let me know. What topic should I cover next? Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.